Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the special council meeting on June 15th, 2026. Individuals interested in participating in today's meeting were eligible to register online using the delegation registration form at www.kitchener.ca/delegation or via email at delegation@kitchener.ca. Any written comments received prior to the commencement of this afternoon's meeting have been circulated to members of council and will form part of the public record. The meeting live stream and archived videos are available at www.kitchener.ca/watchnow. Before we begin this afternoon's meeting, I'd like to acknowledge that today we're gathering on the traditional territory of the Neutral Anishinaabe and Haudenosaunee peoples. We recognize our responsibility to serve as stewards for the land and honor the original caretakers who came before us. Our community is enriched by the enduring knowledge and deep-rooted traditions of the diverse First Nations, Métis, and Inuit in Kitchener today. Are there any disclosures of pecuniary interest? You turned yourself off. Councillor Johnson, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I do have a conflict on item 4.1 due to my employment.
Okay, thank you. And that's on the whole item? Okay, thank you. Anything else? No other comments? Okay, that has been noted. We'll now move into, we'll begin with staff's presentation. Mr. Bloom, if you'd like to bring forward Make It Kitchener 2.1.
Well, good afternoon, Mayor and members of Council. I want to start by taking you back to the fall of 2020. It was a time when the economy was booming and our city was one of the fastest growing communities in Canada. It's also a time where affordability was a significant challenge, and we're faced with a global pandemic that we'd never faced before, meaning that there was significant uncertainty at the time. So following significant community engagement, you approved Make It Kitchener 2.0, a bold 10-year strategy aimed at tackling the challenges of 5 years ago. And so the strategy had 6 areas of focus which were aimed at balancing both the need for immediate response to the challenges of the pandemic, for example, as well as keeping our eye on long-term investments that needed to make sure our economy would continue to grow in areas such as health innovation, which we knew at the time would be a major growth opportunity. Since that time, in the past 5 years, this council and staff have made as many as 17 major investments into these areas to advance progress in all 6 areas of focus. And while 2024 brought a level of stability, 2025 essentially unearthed that stability. A global trade and tariff challenges, the true onset of AI being integrated into the workforce, rising prices within industries, student immigration being limited, et cetera, multitude of negative forces impacting us last year. I know I've said this to this council before. In my 25 years, I have not experienced a time when so many negative pressures were facing our community and our economy at once as it was last year. So beginning in September, we started to engage our community to look at, given this was a 10-year strategy, we're at the midpoint, what might it look like if we were to look at the next 5 years? What changes do we need to make to refocus where we're headed? And so what we've heard, first and foremost, both from residents, business leaders, and businesses, is that precarity and uncertainty are really top of mind. You heard from a Canadian economist, Eric Protzer, on the importance and the need for us to diversify our economy. One way we create stability and certainty is by continuing to diversify our employment base. We're fortunate that Waterloo Region is one of the most diverse economies in Canada, but that doesn't mean we should rest on our laurels. We need to continue to push and diversify our economy. We heard from the business community the need to reignite private sector investment through catalytic investments that the city can lead. We also heard very much that in today's day, Talent is more mobile than ever, and we need to make sure and to appreciate that talent matters, and in order for our community to be compelling to talent, our downtown matters the most. And lastly, we heard the need for us to be bold in this time of uncertainty. Council, you recall at the strategy session in February, where we shared with you results of the 5 areas of focus that we've been focused on, 4 potential new areas. You went through a prioritization exercise with us, and what I can share, what you hopefully have seen in the strategies, those areas that are bolded and in blue have been translated into the new strategy. So I'm excited to share with you today our proposed Make It Kitchener 2.1 with new areas of focus. And so to be clear, today you're not approving any new initiatives, you are approving the focus that staff will take and the types of initiatives that we will bring forward to you in the coming years to make decisions on those at a future date. Core to Make It Kitchener 2.1 really are 2 what we're calling areas of impact. First and foremost, an overall area of impact around diversifying our economy. So a call to action for us, both as a staff team and council, to focus on these 4 potential areas of focus. So first and foremost, leading a business attraction, retention, and expansion program. So a multi-year effort, largely driven by an internal staff team. As you're aware, we've been realigning our business development team to be able to make significant headway on this work, in partnership largely with Waterloo Economic Development Corporation. So while that will support the here and now and those businesses that have been impacted by today's uncertainty, we also need to continue to look forward, which is why we still need to focus on health innovation, working with the University of Waterloo and the Medical Innovation Exchange on a validation ecosystem which will allow the 130 plus startups that are actively working in health innovation space now to get to commercialization. We also think this won't just help the companies that are here now, but actually will create significant opportunities for companies around Canada to want to come to Kitchener to take advantage of that facility. Thirdly, we need to continue to look even forward into the future, knowing that AI and quantum will be significant impacts to our economy and will create new opportunities. And you'll hear more about the AI front from Mr. McCormick after myself. And lastly, to diversify our economy, we're suggesting we continue what we've started, which is a unique municipal network of micro incubators. We've already have 3 that are actively in place. The 4th on health innovation is set to open later this year, and we intend to bring you business cases on food and music later this year, enabling 6 unique subsets of small businesses and entrepreneurs to advance their business. And so while we're diversifying the economy, we know we also need to make sure that our downtown is vibrant. And so a second area of impact is for us to have a bold vision for downtown Kitchener with 2 distinct areas where we think we can make significant impact. And so first around arts and entertainment, and why we've selected these 2, one, because they obviously make strategic sense, but also because of the asset base that we start with. So the teal circles are publicly owned assets or public city-supported assets in arts and entertainment. And the purple ones are both public and private facilities that support innovation. So when you look at what we have downtown, we already have pretty extensive networks, both focused on arts and entertainment, as well as innovation. So what will it look like to support those? It will be the need for, potential need for catalytic investments. So a major investment, for example, on the arts and entertainment front, in a major draw to attract large volumes of visitors and really bring that sector to full potential. And on the innovation district front, to ensure it remains as one of the top innovation districts in Canada, looking at a potential additional innovation center, much like the Innovation Arena or the Communitech Hub, to really grow the next future of businesses. How will we fund this work? Fortunately, we've built EDIF 2.0, so we have an ability to fund projects still out of that fund, although I'll note that a large proportion of that was to come from our strategic land model, and given where land prices are today, we just caution council that our ability to bring land forward and use it may not be as fast as we may have anticipated 5 years ago, and we may need to be more cautious in our expectations around our ability to use and leverage that funding. That said, we're excited about the plan in front of you because we also feel like it stays true to what the community asked us 5 years ago when they gave us this motto, which is not just growth for the sake of growth, but that we stand up and be the city that does the most good in the world, because they feel if any community in the world can do it, it should be Kitchener. So with that, I'll be on hand after to answer questions. I think the next course of action is Sheldon McCormick is going to come up and speak to the Communitech component of the proposal. So unless there's any emergent questions from the mayor.
No, that's, thanks Corey for the presentation. We'll come back to questions for you. Before I invite Mr. McCormick up, I'll just do the normal blurb that we have to do for all delegations. So to all delegations, the city values and encourages participation and dialogue in a democratic process that occurs in council and committee meetings and through written submissions and correspondence. It's important that these interactions remain respectful towards other members of the public, staff, and council. In cases where dialogue is not respectful or a delegate interrupts the mayor, councillor, staff, or other delegations, makes derogatory statements about the mayor, councillor, staff, or others that are disrespectful, or uses language that is considered harmful or defamatory, the chair may interject and take necessary actions to maintain a respectful and inclusive environment for everyone, which could involve removal from the meeting. One last reminder, delegations are permitted to address council for a maximum 5 minutes, which will be displayed on the screens in front of you. When there's 30 seconds remaining in your time, you'll hear a small audio tone that will signal 30 seconds remaining. Please take that time to conclude your presentation, as there will be a second tone at the completion of your time, and the microphones will turn off automatically shortly after the exceeded 5-minute mark. Lastly, please do not take offense if following your presentation there's no questions from council. This is council's time to really listen and reflect upon the opinions and ideas shared with us from our community members. And with that, Mr. McCormick, I'll invite you up. Don't be too harsh on us.
As Mr. McCormick is getting set, just to give you context, so as a reminder, 2 years ago, council approved a 4-year partnership agreement with Communitech to continue to support the tech and startup ecosystem. There was a request as part of that approval was that at the mid-year mark, or at the midpoint after 2 years, that the city staff and Communitech would revisit the purpose and the intention of what would be delivered through that programming. And given that we were also refreshing Make It Kitchener, it made sense to do both at the same time. So Mr. McCormick, who's the CEO of Communitech, is going to share with you what the next 2 years would look like.
Well, thank you very much, Mayor and members of council, for having me in this afternoon. Last year was the first time I addressed you, and you were a very intimidating group for a CEO of about, I think, 12 days at that point in time. You're equally intimidating group, but I'm no longer the new guy, so you can ask me all the difficult questions this year that you may have held back last year. I would say it has been a real pleasure getting to know the region over the last 12 months. Personally, it's been a fantastic experience for myself and my family, and one of the highlights has been getting to know city staff who've worked very closely with Communitech, as well as several folks around the room tonight. And I did want to start by acknowledging Brian, who I think is close to retirement, and has been a wonderful partner to myself and Communitech. So wanted to give him a proper shout out when I had the opportunity. And now on to my official business. So, oh, no, Corey, I thought you might have warmed this up. There we go. Communitech, as many of you know, has been a long-standing partner with the City of Kitchener. We are a membership-based organization representing the collective of founders and entrepreneurs and their teams building technology companies in Waterloo Region. And our vision is to foster a globally competitive technology ecosystem here in Waterloo Region that's anchored by local companies that start here, that scale here, and stay here. And although we've been a partner with the City of Kitchener for many, many years, as Corey mentioned, over the last 2 specifically, we had a focus on really reconnecting the community of technology companies coming out of the COVID pandemic. And so pleased to share that we have, over the last several quarters, interacted with over 700 startup companies. We have had over 150 companies participate in structured acceleration programming. We've had over 30 active peer groups of executives and leaders in the region convening here in downtown Kitchener, and almost countless large events, some having 200, 300, 400 people here in downtown Kitchener. We've also had some successes with procurement pathways with startup companies that we've been able to introduce to the city, and the city has gone on to be an anchor company for them. And going off script, I'm happy to share that this year, actually, we're trending to have the highest number of startup technology companies join Communitech since any year since 2016. So a 10-year high that we're on track for. And last year, we saw a 60% increase in engagement with Communitech over the year prior. So lots of momentum, and we greatly appreciate the support. But as we look forward, we are being, just like the city, responsive to what's happening in the world. We are now in the AI era, and so we are ensuring that Communitech stays relevant and current in convening the AI era here in downtown Kitchener. So you'll see Communitech is endeavoring to support over 300 companies with AI workshops, boot camps, acceleration programs, staying very responsive to the needs of those companies as the AI era evolves. It's become a critical piece of the technology industry. I would say software has become AI, and AI will become the software industry moving forward. The critical question is whether we in Kitchener will be able to compete and harness the opportunity. And I think together we most certainly should be optimistic. We're well set up to do that. We will be building the next generation of AI companies, but we also want to make sure that we do it in a way that has equity at the forefront and brings the entire community along. And so with your partnership, we'll continue our Fierce Founders Acceleration Program, which supports female and non-binary founders. We aim to support over 60 companies in this program over the next year. 15 high potential companies will receive grants of between $30,000 and $50,000. And in fact, one of the most successful events at downtown Kitchener's Tannery Event Center last year was our International Women's Day celebration with over 200 female entrepreneurs. One of the things we're going to be doing over the course of the next year is turning our students into entrepreneurs as well. So we're pleased to share that our AI at Work program now has a tremendous amount of momentum, where we have teams of Laurier, Conestoga College, University of Waterloo students actually deployed out into small and medium-sized businesses in the region. We have 21 students currently deployed across 7 local businesses: healthcare services, manufacturing, the defense supply chain, and that program will scale up and continue with your support. Greatly appreciate your time today and happy to answer any questions you may have.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. McCormick. And we do have a number of questions for you. Hopefully they're not intimidating ones. Councillor Singh.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Sheldon, you do have a lot more experience, and I think you're fortunate this is an election year. Most of us will be, or most elected officials tend to become more shell-shocked. So I don't think there's going to be any intimidation coming our way towards you. More of, I think, for us to really figure out a way to continue on making Kitchener look and feel amazing, which Communitech continues to lead in the landscape. But the overall environment has shifted in the sense that from an outside perspective, again, I'm speaking only as an outsider myself, there's more pessimism and uncertainty as to where the economy is leading and where the jobs are heading towards, and what we can do locally, continue on thriving and promoting our incubation and startup culture. So speaking of that, scale-ups. It's great that we are supportive, always have been, for startups, but it's equally important to see scale-ups happening here, which we've succeeded and benefited in the past. What are we seeing now towards scale-ups?
Well, I'll answer it in 2 respects. So one thing I'll share is you want to have you want to be widening and growing the funnel of startup companies and also helping the companies that are already formed to succeed. As a result of the support of council, we've been able, at Communitech specifically, to unlock quite significant federal funding from the FedDev. And from FedDev, we've been able to have dedicated what we call the Scale Up platform, which is a multi-million-dollar investment in local scale-up companies. And so that actually serves as a very good example of what the continued partnership with the City of Kitchener can help us to unlock. Specifically now, I would say there's cause to be optimistic because we have some of the highest rates of startup formation. 2024, 2025, now 2026 are record years relative to highs that we would have saw back in 2014, 15, 16. So you have lots of reasons to be optimistic for where the funnel of scale-up companies will be emerging in the coming years.
Okay, I may not have enough time, but I'm through as others ask questions, I think if you could answer, what can Kitchener do more towards the scale-up support? I know that feds obviously have an important role to play in the province as well, but what can we do beyond what we're doing right now, the incubation? But I'll quickly jump to another question. I'll mention a couple, then you can just free flow answer it. So general sentiment of new graduates coming out of the universities or colleges who are going to be that formation of a startup ecosystem, what's their feeling right now compared to past 3-4 years ago? Second thing is going to be about philanthropy. We have succeeded over the last decade of succeeding in growing businesses here locally, and many have benefited through Communitech, through the City of Kitchener commitment. And now that they have made their mark in the world, are we at a point in time starting to increasingly tap them and say, hey, you got to come back, you got to help us, you got to mentor, you got to coach. You have to support the area that you grew out of. What are we doing in that? The last question I'll ask is, if someone else was asking you, why Kitchener? Because we're not the lone wolf anymore. Everyone's doing what we're doing. And how could we still convince them why Kitchener? Thank you.
Well, in terms of scale-ups, what can you do? Keep doing what you're doing in terms of making government an anchor customer. I think there's good momentum in that regard, but if you can give entrepreneurs at the scale-up phase revenue, there's nothing more powerful than that. So I'd encourage staff and local politicians to continue to build procurement pathways for local government to be an anchor customer. Your question on students, we should be well aware that this is an incredibly difficult time to recruit and retain talent because of the power of the US tech sector. The tech sector in the United States has grown immensely, and look no further than the percentage of the S&P 500 that's made up of US tech companies. Top 10 companies in the world, most of them are large US tech companies, and they have done a very, very good job of finding sophisticated ways to recruit students who are being educated here. The more that we can do to connect those students into our community early so that they can experience the fullness of what we have to offer, I think is the way that you keep some of those students here, introducing them not just into our community, but also to world-class leading work that they can find here. And remember that the students change over every 2 or 3 years, and we may get sick of telling the same story, but we have to maintain a high level of persistence in telling that story because we have a wonderful story to share. Specifically to your question on philanthropy, I think there's more we can do to encourage those who have benefited from the investment of the density in our ecosystem, to encourage them and make it easy for them to find ways to give back. That's certainly something that I'm focused on and keeping top of mind. But I stress the membership nature of Communitech is in part because I want mentors to be members to give back to that next generation. And then I think your last question was why Kitchener? There's no place that balances quality of life with the density of talent. So as a former entrepreneur myself and as someone who could build a business anywhere, this would be top of my list because of that balance between quality of life and the density of people that you have.
Councillor Schneider.
Thank you, Mayor. Sheldon, thanks again for coming in. It's always great to visit Communitech and feel the positive energy that's inside that building. Part of what we're doing here with Make It Kitchener 2.1 is the new vision for downtown Kitchener. And I think it's safe to say that investing in Communitech really helped our downtown, but we want to continue to help the downtown. We have lots of office space. We want to know what people want in the downtown. What are the possibilities of working together with Communitech to develop a strategy to maybe have some scale-ups, move into the downtown buildings we have, and create the kind of downtown with the kind of amenities that people would want downtown.
Well, I've actually been quite encouraged with some of the work that city staff have been leading on this respect. I'm involved in a downtown strategy this summer, and I'm with quite keen interest, looking forward to participating in that process. As you know, ways have working in the technology industry have changed coming out of COVID. And so I would encourage just a high level of collaboration between our local businesses, our technology ecosystem, government staff, local landlords. I think that kind of collaboration is critical in this moment. I would say that there seems to be the ways of work have changed, but there seems to be an insatiable appetite for folks to be convened together, particularly in the early stage startup and scale up ecosystem, to be able to get into the same room and celebrate success, build trust, build networks. That's a critical piece of the early stage journey. And so we look to be working with city staff and local landlords to continue to build that energy downtown.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Schneider. Councillor Davey.
Thank you. Thanks for your presentation, Sheldon. Just a quick question. If you give us a anecdotal reflection on companies that are starting here but then leaving to go elsewhere, is that still an area of concern?
My bigger concern, Councillor, is students who leave before we have a chance to even get properly introduced. If you look at the number of companies that are formed by students we had in this community for 5 or 6 years that ultimately look like a California-based company but could have been a Kitchener-based company, it's a staggering number. And so I think we have quite a lot of success with companies once they start building here. There's so many reasons to stay pertaining to quality of life, access to investment, access to talent. It's that step earlier where I'd encourage us to focus.
Okay, but are companies still leaving though? Sorry, just follow up question too. And when a company does start there and then moves along, and they leave the country, they leave entirely, is there any residual, like tangible benefit for the local community once they do?
Well, it's certainly a loss to the community if a company leaves. I'd say my greater concern at this time is not companies that are leaving the technology sector locally, but it's the talent that leaks before a company forms. There's an opportunity to introduce more of our local students into this ecosystem, and if we can do that consistently, I think we'll see startup formation rates grow at a more significant rate. And ultimately, we want more bigger anchor local companies here. To do that, we have to consistently be building a funnel.
Okay. Has there ever been any thought given, because my understanding is a lot of the grants that are given come with literally no strings attached. Has there ever been any thought put towards like an equity investment or something along those lines?
I think two things. I think outcomes orientation is critical, right? To ensure that any investor, whether it's private or public, is getting a good return on the investment. And that's certainly something that I'm very keen to continue to build on at Communitech, is making sure that we've got quantifiable outcomes that I can come back and share with all of you, given the trust and the stewardship we all have for the public investments that occur. It might be a question for the city staff or pertaining to whether there's ever been consideration of taking equity positions. It's not something that I've had conversations about with City of Kitchener staff over the last year, but it's possible that it may predate me.
Okay, thank you. And last question, going from the 1,000-foot perspective, just you've been doing this for a little while now, so living and breathing it. I'm just curious in your perspective going forward, if you do believe that artificial intelligence is the biggest economic growth possibility going forward, is the first question. And the second question, to not so you're not necessarily criticizing us specifically, but is the government investing as much as we need to make sure that we have a part of that pie?
Well, I have high conviction on your first point. I think artificial intelligence will be one of the most transformative waves that has ever swept the technology industry, and it will infiltrate every aspect of our economy. I suspect we will live through an enormous retrofit of our entire technology industry, but also traditional sectors. And what we're seeing out of the U.S. is a just unprecedented amount of investment in the trillions of dollars that will continue in coming years. I've been encouraged with my conversations with Canadian policymakers. We've seen the federal government announce its AI for All strategy just 2 weeks ago. I think there's lots of promising signs that we're not going to see the opportunity pass us by. But you know, the partnership we have here with that staff that are introducing with us today, I would say would be evidence of policymakers in Canada kind of stepping up to take advantage of the opportunity.
Okay, very diplomatic, but thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Davey. Councillor Chapman.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for your presentation. I also had a question about the startups, but I think you answered it. The other question I had is regarding AI. And yeah, it's wonderful. And I see, you know, it's around us everywhere and it's going to continue to grow. But from your perspective, how do we balance the growth of AI with the building of data centers, which require huge amounts of electricity and water? And so how do you balance that, and what would you suggest to us as a city and the region, maybe more importantly?
Maybe speaking personally, I think we need to ask ourselves in the technology industry, what is it going to take to build trust with this technology? I think the Minister of AI and Digital Adoption, Evan Solomon's been very clear. He has this line around AI, you know, moving at the speed of trust ultimately through our economy. I think it would serve the technology industry very well if it was not people like me who are talking about AI, but actually the users of it. Right? So how does AI impact the life of a charge nurse who can save 2 or 3 hours a day because scheduling is more bearable or less cumbersome? Or how does AI serve to increase safety on a construction site, right? And have somebody on site actually be able to articulate the benefits. So I've been asking myself that question. How do you have the users of the technology, folks who are benefiting, be able to be the ones who are championing it? And so partially what we're working through at Communitech is to try to accelerate the diffusion of the technology into the hands of those people. And so this program we call AI at Work is endeavoring to do just that. It's trying to get our students to be deployed into the middle market, which is a positive educational experience for them, but more importantly, for our local businesses, it's also an opportunity for them to get access to talent that may accelerate their comfort and their understanding of the technology.
And as far as the data centers, what does the future of data centers look like?
That's a question way above my pay grade, I would say, Councillor. Certainly, something that makes the AI economy different from what we experienced in the tech sector over the last 25 years is that AI more profoundly impacts the physical world in that this is not a carbon copy of software that can be replicated millions of times at zero marginal cost. AI is a metered resource. And so from our critical minerals through to energy, through to infrastructure and delivery, we will see for the first time the real infusion of the technology industry with the physical world, and I suspect it will cause us to ask some fairly profound questions.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Deneau.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Sheldon, for coming out today. A couple questions. And so you mentioned students not staying here and going down south. And there are a lot of reasons why we can't necessarily compete with the big bad wolf down south. But we have distinct advantages, you know, in our country, in our community. What do you think are some of the biggest lacking amenities or uh, experiences that we're missing from our community that other communities have that will attract young people?
Share an anecdote from the Socraticus Symposium, which I think was a wonderful event hosted at Center in the Square back in March, where you saw an example of hundreds of students kind of celebrating entrepreneurship, but also the intersection of technology and art and creativity more broadly. I asked one of the students, who's an organizer of that event, why she decided to leave, and she said, "Sheldon, I realized at the end of my 4th year that I was too old to stay here in this community." And I kind of had to take a double take on that and laughed. And she went on to say that she was aware of the incredible tech community that existed on campus, but she had no idea that there was something much bigger for her off campus. And so I thought, well, shame on us. We have this incredible story to tell. And it's served as a reminder that the students continue to come in and out of our community on a regular basis. We have to be very active to expose them to what we have. And so it's not so much that I think we're missing something, Councillor. I think that we may forget to share what we have and to do it in a way that resonates in a very consistent way.
That's a really good answer. Okay. A few other questions. First of all, what industry do you think will see the biggest positive impact from AI? And depending on what it is, what can we do as a city, as a municipality to support that?
Similar to a question raised by your colleague, I'm purely speculating, and I'd suggest that it's almost impossible to predict which sector within our economy will be most impacted. I feel a high degree of confidence in saying that there will be no sector unimpacted. The question is how dramatically, and I suspect it will be quite significant. I think my experience working with the policymakers, politicians, councillors, city staff here is that we actually have quite a forward-looking perspective on this technology here. And I encourage staff to continue to be asking questions, engaging in the materials, speaking to experts. It does feel to me that this city is actually on the forefront of asking all the critical questions that we should be asking on behalf of the population writ large.
Okay. And my last question, last year and a half, the country's really leaned into buy Canada, buy local. But I've read stories, online from local entrepreneurs saying, we can't get into the Canadian market, we can't get into the Ontario market. And so are there any, outside of those other barriers, is there anything we can do from our end to say, to put pressure on upper levels of government to support that buy Canadian? We have a place I work at, we use Trulou toilets. It's an American company. There's no reason why we don't have something like that up here. Now, is there a barrier, is there a barrier from preventing companies from selling and doing business in Canada?
I think there's much positive intent and positive rhetoric, and to the degree that you can continue to reinforce now the practical implementation of those buy Canada, buy Ontario policies, that would be my hope. And thinking broadly and critically about what is the definition of a local company. And I think that there's lots of ways to characterize a multinational company as local, when in fact we stare at it and we kind of know that it may look like a US or other global company. So being critical about the definition of a local company and ensuring that we take into consideration the economic impact and not just the cost of production when evaluating options would be my hope.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Ioannidis.
Thank you, Mayor Urbanovic, and thanks, Sheldon, for coming in. I guess my questions, I have several, but my first question would be, how has affordability affected our market compared to the other tech markets?
Well, I'll use the opportunity to perhaps share another anecdote. I get to spend a lot of my time with students. I think students are a wellspring of innovation in our community. One of the struggles that many of those students have is they'll say that the cost of rent is similar here as it is in other major metros. Cost of buying a home is obviously significant. The impact on an entrepreneur is it's very difficult to go without a salary if you have a very, very expensive rent to pay. And so I do know that that is weighs heavily on the mind of a lot of local students, which is that there may have been a time a decade or two ago where when they looked at the trade-off between Toronto or California or Kitchener, there was more of a gap in affordability than there may be today. So I do think to that extent it does impact the leakage of talent that we need to be fighting against.
Okay, that's kind of what I thought. My other question would be with regards to, I know some of our other members of council here or committee here have mentioned, but tariffs. Can you just give me a straight up opinion how tariffs have affected the market in general? Because it seems like to me that's a huge barrier. Why would I stay here and deal with tariffs when I can just go down south?
It certainly creates a level of uncertainty and paralysis that makes it more difficult to raise capital. And so I'd suggest in the technology industry, where I spend most of my time, the impact has been more indirect than direct. The two areas in which they're very impactful is, number one, your customer's customer is likely impacted directly, if not you, and that takes a toll. And then this, as I said, on the investment climate, the ability to raise capital. When there's lingering uncertainty, it's very difficult to get a yes from an investor, and that impacts our local ecosystem.
Okay. My third question would be, have we looked strategically with other markets to partnership, for example? Like, I know in the past, and I feel like we've sort of slipped a little bit here, but we had several organizations working together with a common goal to attract business here. I don't feel like that's happening, but again, I would like to hear your perspective.
Actually believe that one of the things that struck me in the first year here in working professionally in Kitchener, but more broadly in Waterloo region, if there is a sense of collaboration amongst several of the organizations locally. In fact, over just in the last 48 hours, my Thursday and Friday has completely been blown up because we have a very exciting technology company who is planning, or at least considering, a move to this region. This is a company well over $1 billion with hundreds of staff, and they are considering moving their HQ here locally. And what I've experienced in that last 48 hours is many organizations locally, including several entrepreneurs that don't even work in the sector, getting together to kind of line up and do whatever they can to help support the broader sale that we can all make as a region to have this company relocate here. So as I reflect on my first year at Communitech, I'd say one of the most pleasant things, pleasant surprise, has been the level of collaboration and the willingness to work together.
Okay. I guess my last question, and it would be with regards to what do you want from us? Like, in the sense, the mayor goes out and does economic development and all that stuff, but there's 10 other members here that would be glad to help advocate for this community. In fact, it used to happen, but it doesn't happen anymore. And so what I'm getting at is, do you need a more comprehensive strategy from this council to help advocate for your needs? Like, do you need more active involvement from members of council, or does this council in itself should take on a greater responsibility to support you? in your organization, is what I'm trying to get at.
I think this council has done a tremendous job in supporting our organization. And so I'd value the level of support that we have received historically. I think, as I said, I'll end perhaps where I began, which is I also think city staff, as well as many folks around the room here, have been incredibly supportive to our organization and many others, and I hear that from entrepreneurs as well. So I'd encourage you to be doing more of that. I think the region overall has an incredible story to tell. We can't take for granted that we have all these incredible assets, from universities and colleges to anchor employers, private sector, startups, scale-ups. The critical thing that I think about is, how do we make sure that for a community that has all the ingredients, how do you make those ingredients compound? And so critical that we continue to collaborate and amplify all the amazing assets that we have in the region.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Stretch? Stephanie? Go ahead. Can you say something? Maybe not. There's something going on with your sound. Your sound. Try turning off your video. Try speaking now with your video off. Okay, Stephanie, staff will send you a message, and we'll see if we can figure it out. Worst comes to worst, turn your machine on and off.
I thought it only ever happened to me, so I'm happy to see this.
That always works. Councillor Singh.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think the questions have been so broad, Sheldon, that you may not want to take up us on this, but this council definitely needs to take you out for dinner and just pick your brain, because I think there's just so much more understanding and learning of the overall market, and just figuring out of box some solutions that goes beyond what this type of opportunity really allows. I want to touch on some things that came out of this discussion, which quite supportive of as well. What Councillor Davey touched on is, how do we, so going to my initial question, which was scale up, and this question, how do we potentially take an equity share? So the question would be, where a company is not necessarily just on the preface of looking for seed funding, so looking for venture capital out there, but they're just before that scale up opportunity. And that's always the best time for maybe a local partner, like a municipality potentially, to come and say, hey, there's some extra dollars. Would you want to, for an equity stake? Do you think there would be uptake on something like that? Competing later end, it's just too much, and the amount of money that we would have at play is insignificant to what the needs are. It's really, the question is right before they're reaching that scale up phase, where they need some support, but again, they just don't know where they're going yet.
Well, I feel reasonably confident in saying there'd be a number of local venture capitalists who'd love for the municipality to invest in their funds. I'm not so sure that they'd be excited about the municipality competing with them directly to get onto the cap table. We do have some world-class venture capital investors here in Waterloo region, and that was not always the case. And I do think, as difficult as it is to raise capital for an early stage entrepreneur, we should celebrate the fact that today there has never been a time like it is now in terms of availability of early stage capital for locally based general partners of venture capital funds. And there may be a unique opportunity to help to continue to build that strong bench by investing directly in them. But they have expertise and capability in building funnels and watching companies and providing advice that would be otherwise very difficult to replicate.
Okay, look, as much as we can dream and hope, I'm not talking about us investing in a future SpaceX where we can completely go off the tax base because we have made enough money from one company alone. It's really about us having some stake where there's some sense of influence once they scale up for them to stay local. The second aspect is that there's some skin in the game where the city has come in where we are able to, just at the very least, continue on growing that pot and sustaining that initial seed funding so it can be dispersed to a larger group. So you don't have to answer on the spot, but this would be something I really encourage you to answer back maybe at a later time or engage with our staff, because your insight would be crucial in this. Because we're talking about economic development 2.1 and looking at beyond what staff have outlined. I want, like Councillor Davey, for us to look outside the box, and this is one of those avenues. The second thing, you touched on this, is we are so unique, the fact that we're maturing and growing talent here in this area. We don't have to attract them from anywhere else. They're just coming out of University of Waterloo, Laurier, Conestoga College, Guelph University. But sometimes once they graduate, we may have already lost them. Is there any program in year 3 where there's, entrepreneurial-minded students, where there could be potential city investment in this area as well, but through Communitech, there's more integration to the university, where you're gathering them, training them before they know what their idea is?
I think this is an area of immense opportunity. If I take, for example, the University of Waterloo, world famous for its co-op program, where at any given time, thousands of students are out working. And it's part of the reason that those students are valued so highly in the workforce, is they get those reps throughout their term. I think there's more we could do as a community to create conditions for them to do more of those co-op terms here with local companies, to the degree that we can facilitate working with local medium, small businesses that may not have the resources to recruit and train and pay for those students. I think that's an enormous opportunity for us, and one that we intend to pursue.
Yeah, the co-op is low-hanging fruit. I'm really talking about nurture. Beyond the co-op programming that the University of Waterloo, Laurier, whatever other institutions may have, going outside of the co-op and rather than touching and saying, hey, there's a veil opportunity. If you're entrepreneurial-minded, you have some idea, you're thinking about developing some idea, this may be a program outside of your studies that's through Communitech, through the City of Kitchener, that's unique, next to none. That's a kind of what I would love to touch on, and hopefully we can talk to our staff later on as well. I'm going to ask you just one last question. I'm not trying to put you on the spot, because this is important for us, because beyond asking overall questions about broad things, the thing is, how do we make economic development 2.0 for City of Kitchener better? Which is beyond you coming here and saying, yes, City of Kitchener's on the right road. As you're thinking about a lot of different things, what's something that you may have thought about asking, but haven't asked yet, but you think, might even be afraid of asking the City of Kitchener, and you may not have asked yet? You have receptive 11 individuals that are supportive and willing to listen. Thank you.
So it's a meta question. It's a what question would I ask you? I think we are in the AI era, so to the degree that the City of Kitchener can invest to support our ability to support entrepreneurs as they adapt to the AI era, every net new company needs to be AI native, built on a new technology stack, and every existing company needs to adapt. So that is, I would say, the theme for now. And almost certainly years from now, we'll be asking ourselves something very similar with quantum computing opportunity. And so I'd be asking ourselves, how do we as City of Kitchener continue to stay on the forefront of the adoption of disruptive technologies? And I'm very encouraged by what I see from city staff in terms of their commitment to both AI and quantum.
Okay, we'll try Councillor Stretch now again. Councillor Stretch.
Hi, can you hear me?
We can hear you now.
Hey, okay, great. I missed a little bit of Councillor Singh's, the beginning of his question, and it may be the same question, so please forgive me if I'm repeating it. My question really was about retaining talent, and I'm clear on what we as a city can do to retain talent, but I'm curious what Communitech Tech can do. I heard you talk about there's a need for that and how to connect with those students. So I'm wondering clearly what are your ideas to help make that connection earlier and hold on to talent? And I'm also curious about where is that talent coming from? I'm assuming there are some programs at the University of Waterloo or Laurier that we're referring to or that we're drawing a lot of talent from. But as you know, as things change, does that talent draw get bigger? Is it getting smaller? And you know, what can Communitech be doing to help retain that?
I think Communitech can do quite a lot to build what I'll call talent pipeline, right, between the students and the local businesses that are here. As I alluded to earlier in my remarks, many students, whether it's Conestoga College or Laurier or University of Waterloo, are simply unaware of the depth and the richness of the local technology ecosystem. And so the degree to which Communitech can act as a convener and a connector across post-secondary to the private sector and the startup, scale-up technology ecosystem, I think that is an area where we can add a tremendous amount of value. As I said, we cannot take for granted that students know about what opportunities are here, nor can we take for granted that it's incredibly time-consuming and resource-intensive to recruit those students for local small businesses and startup companies. And so if we can do more to make it easy for them to connect and screen and recruit those students, I think that could be very valuable. Beyond this notion of a talent pipeline, I think we need to get them introduced to our community writ large, right? Social connectivity. So the degree that we can get out on campus, make sure they're aware of the events that we have happening in downtown Kitchener or across the region, so that they're exposed to the richness and the diversity of what our community has to offer, and so that they see outside the walls of campus. But we cannot expect them to go looking. We need to find ways to pull them broadly, into our community. And then I'm very, very enthusiastic about our ability to retain them.
Okay. So Sheldon, what are some of those ways then? I totally agree with you. So what are some of those ways Communitech is doing or is currently wanting to do?
One thing we have in market today is something we call AI at Work. That's a program where we recruit students, we screen the students, and we place them in local, medium, small businesses so that the students can work in teams to do the diffusion of AI, build custom software or agentic workflows for local small businesses. We announced that about 4 months ago. We had room for 21 students for our first cohort. We had 1,200 applications within 5 days. So that tells you that there is demand from students to work in this community. But it is no small feat to then actually find the placement opportunity for all those students. So the students are ready, they're eager, they're willing. What we now need to do is build the pipeline of medium and small businesses that want to take them on, make it easier for them, and scale up that program. And that program actually, I'll share more in the coming weeks about that. But we have secured funding from government, not this one, but another one, to scale that program substantially in the next several quarters.
Great, that's good news. Okay, thank you.
Wonderful. You've been through the ringer in terms of questions today. But that is all the questions we have. I do just want to thank you for taking the time to come in, and also for the leadership that you've shown in the past year or so since you've taken the helm. It's really been great working together with you and your team, and I know we look forward to continuing that in the months ahead.
Great. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Okay, we'll now deal with questions of staff. Going back to Corey's presentation. Any questions of Corey? Councillor Davey?
Yes, thank you. I do have a few questions. I want to start by saying, I do love 99% of this, but I do have some concerns. that I just wanted to raise now, or maybe they're just clarifying questions. The first one is the diversifying our economy. And I read through the report, I'm not completely clear. There's diversification in terms of, we want to diversify away from a bunch of large companies to smaller ones, which is what our startups program does, which is great. But there's also diversify away from what we're known for, which is the tech industry, which I'm not so comfortable with. So if I could just get some more clarity on what we actually mean by diversifying our economy as part of the strategy.
Go ahead, Mr. Bloom.
So through the chair, so I'll start with sort of big pictures of what makes our community successful is we've got diversity across multiple sectors, manufacturing, finance, tech, et cetera. We also know what makes us successful is we have significant diversity within each sector, multiple different kinds of manufacturing companies, multiple different types of technology companies. So I think my simple answer is I wouldn't want it to give an impression that we're moving away from that. I think the more diversity we can create within sectors and introducing new sectors is the path to the greatest stability. So I would say no intention to step away from any of our existing core sectors.
Okay, thank you. And with the health innovation, this is something I've been warming up to, and I think it is referenced in one sentence as well. But I also want to be clear on that, and actually stemming from the consultant's presentation we had some time back, which I thought was, it was very enlightening. The intent here with health innovation is to focus on medical devices, like patentable engineering type medical devices, not drugs, not vaccines, not disease research. That's not what we're focusing on, because that's not our strength. It is primarily like the hardware, the medical devices when we're looking at health innovation. That's our core focus. Is that correct?
Through the chair, correct that, as well as we know that just the software data side of health there's a big growth opportunity there. But if you recall from the economist's presentation, the hardware component is the least likely to leave community, as in it's least likely to be done virtually, it's the least likely to be automated. And so, obviously the work with the innovation arena, med tech being a key focus of that work.
Okay, that's reassuring. And I guess I was just going to speak to it in comments as well, but the last thing that's just kind of, I guess, throwing me for a bit of a loop is the reference to a food incubator. And I think I've heard that in the past. I'm still not entirely sure what spurred this or what the base is for this, but again, this is one of those causes of concern for me in that I think we're too small of a community to try and be everything to everyone, and I just want to try and understand why that's in here and we're not just doubling down on our broader tech envelope.
So through the chair, I think two reasons. There's a small and a big. In terms of small, as we've seen, the vibrancy of your community matters from a talent standpoint. So having successful independent restaurateurs important for downtown, for the community. And so at this point, there really is no program that helps to nurture those types of businesses beyond the sort of classroom type programming we give at the Small Business Center. So that's sort of localized opportunity number one. But beyond that, in terms of food production, we know that Conestoga College specializes in this work. They have facilities that can support companies that want to actually do the manufacturing of food. And so I think there is an opportunity. So I think what we'd be looking at is a facility and program that can support both, not just sort of the typical food industry we would think of like restaurants, but also major manufacturers. And I think just given we've got a resource in town, it's worth at least exploring to see what that might look like.
Okay, those are all my questions. Thank you, Mr. Bloom.
Thank you. Councillor Chapman.
Yeah, thank you. My first question has to do again with data centers. I don't know if you'd like to speak to that.
So through the chair, I don't know that there's an answer that I can give you. I think it's a challenging subject, and there is no probably right answer. What I would stress, I think what we've heard from Sheldon is whether we love it or not, it is going to dramatically impact our economy. And I think as government or as city leaders, I think we need to figure what is the most responsible way we can do it, but I don't think we can ignore it. I think it's going to transform our economy, and we either support companies in that growth or not. I don't have an answer on how we do that in the most responsible way. I think that's some thinking that needs to be done. I was thinking about the sort of the equivalent parallel. I'm sure when the railway, when industry lived off the river and we went to the railway, there was probably similar challenge about the impact that the railway would have. And I just look back on communities that didn't get on board with the railway approach, became obsolete, and those that were connected to the railway grew. And I don't know that that's the same equivalency here, but I just think I would fear that if we don't support companies looking to grow in the AI field, I worry that our community may be at risk if we weren't supportive of that. So.
Right, and I'm not suggesting we don't go down this road. I'm just saying I think we need to be very cognizant of the impact that it can have on our water supply and on our electrical services. The other thing I had, so in one of the slides it says our call to action remains the same. Let's stand up and be the city that does the most good in the world. I'm not quite sure what that means, first of all, but that's not my question. It's more in the context of that statement. And when we talk about business attraction and retention and expansion, we talk about defense. What does defense mean in the context of this action item?
So through the chair, so clearly the federal government is going to make significant investments in defense, and that means many things. I think for our community, it's looking at what are the areas that we have strengths in that could lend itself to the federal investments in defense. And given that that cybersecurity is a major component, to me that is an opportunistic area that I know Communitech is also looking at potentially as well. So yeah, I think that's where I would stress that our focus would be is on where tech and innovation align with defense as a key growth opportunity for us to work with Communitech to see if there is room for growth there.
And because I do have concerns that there be many advocacy groups in the community that would not support this. Personally, I wouldn't support it, but I hope there'll be some greater interaction or engagement with the community before we go down that road.
Thank you, Councillor Chapman. Councillor Singh.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I really do appreciate the concerns laid out by Councillor Chapman related to defense spending and what that means us as a community if there's going to be local jobs that supports that sector. But equally, I think it's important because she said it's important to identify there are many in this community that are fearful or worrisome about the general reality of the environment, the employment landscape, and they would love to have more job opportunities. And if that is the investment that our federal government, who has that mandate towards national defense, wants to invest back in local development, and it would be important for us to ensure that development happens in the city of Kitchener as well, so that we can ensure that that investment translate to more jobs. So I think there are many, many in the community that feel that equally as well, if not more so. So speaking of that, what I felt was missing was a strong focus on advanced manufacturing, because much of that defense spending will be advanced manufacturing. I know Communitech addresses it, but stuff happens through the private sector through Catalyst. What more can 2.1 or will it do towards that being an important pillar going forward?
And so through the chair, so we, in 1.8 business attraction, retention, and expansion, I think that is our greatest path to support advanced manufacturing in our community, which is to support existing companies, helping them expand and grow, as well as finding new companies looking to locate here in that field. And I say that only because we have historically looked at, is there a role, is there a Communitech version that is supportive, that is advanced manufacturing focused? I think the challenge we've come up against is it's so capital intensive. Very few communities have done sort of a manufacturing incubator because it's complex, capital intensive, and requires machining and things that are well beyond our kind of knowledge and skill set. So it's not to say that we would never, but I think we've looked at it in the past and just it's probably beyond our ability to do, and that's why typical traditional business attraction, retention, expansion support is likely our best option to support that sector.
I think so. I know that we're going to be ratifying this at a special council, but I think there can be some increased work as you broaden, like, not necessarily develop, but promote the strategy. And I think articulation and specification to advanced manufacturing and bringing that relation to, the defense sector as an investment being made by the federal government would be important. So something that I would like for you to take away. The later part is, I think, two things that came out of discussion with Sheldon is, one, how can we play an important role with investing into our startup culture, where there could be a way of self-sustaining a fund that could invest in future companies as well, brought up by Councillor Davey, and I think that would strongly support that direction. How can 2.1 do that? That's one. Second thing is, the other thing we talked about, how do we ensure that we are able to create an environment where we're in conversation or through some sort of training or opportunities towards third-year university students before they're graduating, so that they can see exactly the extra benefits of them retaining and staying here locally. So that was the second one. And the third thing, similarly, the food incubator, I think you calmed my concern. I had something similar, the fact that this is related towards food manufacturing as well. So as great as I think it's important for us to have a thriving restaurant culture, that culinary aspect in our community, but I think, again, it comes down to job growth, job growth, job growth. And that is also, I think, maybe a greater focus in that food manufacturing aspect rather than the culinary sciences of it. There are a lot of private sectors that touches on that. We can address it and we can be a supporter, but that shouldn't be a significant aspect of that food incubation. Thank you.
So through the chair, in terms of the fund, I knew that the Municipal Act limits us in many ways in terms of what we can do, but I think that's something that Ms. McDonald and I can take away and probably send a note to council to see, are there any opportunities, and if so, what would that look like? I'm not opportunistic, there are, just because I'm understanding the limitations of the Municipal Act. I think in terms of students, I think there's a greater role we can do. I think Sheldon is right. The offerings that we provide as a broader community, and including what we offer as a city, events, et cetera, there's some storytelling that we needed to do and make sure that the message is getting to students while they're here. And lastly, agree with your comment on manufacturing. As context, we actually ran a pilot version of a food incubator through our existing community centers, so using 2 commercial kitchens. We actually had a number of entrepreneurs come through that program whose focus was on manufacturing. One who now actually mass produces and is selling at, I think, 5 different grocery stores, hoping to eventually get national. But I think that is in terms of major job growth, I think that's one of the big opportunities of we'd look at as a part of a food incubator program.
Councillor Schneider.
Great. Thank you, Mayor. Corey, just wondering too, about the downtown, bringing more reasons to bring people downtown, like more restaurants, more activity. Is there anything in this plan that can help deal with that? I don't know if there's ways of maybe even doing things like subsidizing rent for a year or a certain period so a restaurant can get off the ground. Business coaching and mentoring, not just downtown, but throughout the city. A big event, something that, and we do have great events, they're not ours, we support them like Oktoberfest, but just big events that bring people down here to our city. Is that covered in this, and sort of maybe engagement from the general public and with experts in the fields of this?
Yeah, so through the chair, Area Focus 2A, arts and really transforming downtown into a true arts and entertainment destination. There's a few potential actions we've noted. I think one is we will be actively leading and starting very shortly with a comprehensive retail and restaurant attraction strategy, which is our team actually out looking for prospective restaurateurs, retailers, et cetera, that we think if added to some of the vacancies downtown really change the vibrancy and appeal of downtown. So that work will start shortly. But I think in large part what we're trying to say when our focus of downtown is we've already got a lot of core ingredients, and through the launch of Kitchener Live, we're going to bring new life to that. But at the end of the day, for businesses to be the most successful, we need to bring customers to them. And so, continuing to invest in our special event strategy, which council approved a couple weeks ago, is important. But also looking at what major catalytic investments can we look at that might perpetually and continuously draw large volumes of visitors. So that's a major body of work that we're going to be doing over the coming year to really look at what might those be, and then bring back to council options on how we could actually make that happen.
Okay, that's encouraging, because I really think we have to go after things and really be strategic in bringing what we want to the downtown and support that. So thank you.
Councillor Deneau? And any other questions? Okay. Somebody care to move this? Councillor Singh, thank you. Go ahead, Councillor Singh. Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Schneider, thank you. Go ahead, Councillor Singh.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I get this is not a fundamental shift to our economic development strategy, and that's why it says 2.1. So it's a light refresh that I think continues to nurture the direction that the City of Kitchener has already endorsed and is promoting. So I'm supportive of that. I don't see a drastic change to our overall work plan. I think we did touch on some things that some of us have looked upon and saying, hey, we continue making substantive strides towards affordable housing, but that's across all corporate strategies. Does it really need to be in the economic development strategy? That needs to be narrowly focused. So my comment is, I think through this 2.1 should be that direction towards where we are realizing that we got to hunker down. We got to hunker down to a very rapidly changing employment landscape that's affecting globally, and we have to be more prepared for that. We have to be prepared to the outcomes. For example, as trade policies change south of the border, and we have to be prepared towards opportunities when it comes towards AI and quantum computing, and I think on both ends. Leveraging on opportunities and becoming more risk averse towards some pitfalls that do exist in the marketplace now. I would strongly encourage that this not come in years in advance back again. We didn't go through a lengthy dialogue with this council through a committee where overall work plan was done. You guys gave some ideas. We were able to translate back as we did today. You went back, redrafted that work plan, came back, and the council endorsement. Again, we're kind of speeding that process, and I think there's an opportunity with a new term of council for you to come back and us looking at the next budget and realizing exactly, okay, what does that strong, substantive direction is going to be towards that 2.1, 2.2, what the next iteration is. The last bit I really want to touch is, again, no criticism. I think this is all great because it aligns with everything that we've been doing. But what's important is, again, realization to the local reality. What worked before may not continue working as well for us going forward. I think what we're doing as an investment in our arts and culture or events planning is phenomenal. I think that has been our biggest success the last 3 years is towards the events that happen downtown that has brought more crowd to our downtown where we're showcasing exactly what our downtown is. But this is where our worry was decades past, the fact that there weren't enough feet on the ground every day. It's not about just the 50 events that we have, it's about the 365 days that we don't want to see that those dark spots or seeing that stagnation. And one of the things that we realized was initially we had the jobs, we didn't have the residents. And so we tried to figure out a way to have more development happening in our core. We started having that. And unfortunately, just the way the market has shifted, that's come to a standstill. We unfortunately have all the planning policies aligned that can encourage development to take place, but unfortunately the market is not supporting that. So we may need to revisit is how do we instigate or stimulate that housing to proceed forward, because we need the housing. Two things that will revive our downtown and support our downtown going forward to the next 10 years is going to be job growth, jobs here, as well as residents, more residents in our core. Again, that's not saying that we don't need to do the other things, the events, the catalytic, business development, supporting Communitech or whatever, right? But what we got to do is ensure how do we have, again, our vacancies filled in our commercial, and how do we have more people living. If we have more residents, that automatically will have supported businesses that are supporting those residents in our core. So I think that's something we got to start thinking our mind around, is how do we reinitiate, kickstart that housing being built in our core. That's density is there, that's supporting Communitech, because that's what we heard from Sheldon. That density is what's worked for us. We need that greater density in our core. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Deneau.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Along Councillor Singh's speaking of downtown, what resonates with me is the bold vision for downtown. And Ray Kinsella back in 1989 heard the whispers, as we do here, if you build it, they will come. Obviously it's from a movie, but we've heard the whispers talking about a downtown entertainment arena or a convention center. And I think being bold and having that vision of having something downtown is we're a big enough city. We need to, I'm surprised we don't have that already, but I think it's something we really, really need to source out in the next few years. Yeah, it's going to be expensive, but I believe if you look around the province, and I gave a few of you an article from the Hamilton Spectator, the Cops Coliseum just had a big redo. It was already there, but because of the refurbishments, the amount of economic impact downtown around that core is significant. And it will help, we've heard before, people don't necessarily feel safe downtown. More bodies will allow people to feel more safe. That's just the nature of it. And so I support this. I think it's bold. I think it's something that we need to really, really put into place. Just doing something big. Cowan was big. This needs to be bigger than Cowan. I really believe that, and because we've talked about that around this horseshoe the last 4 years about being bold. I also love the food incubator program. I think that's a way to partner. There's a way to partner with local post-secondary institutions who have those programs, food processing, but also allow wannabe chefs to ply their trade and again, if they can develop something that can go out to the stores, and then, they can say, hey, I started that in Kitchener. The city of Kitchener gave me help in producing this product. I think that, we're missing out on some fantastic food opportunities across the city. So again, thank you for the work you guys have done, and hopefully going forward we see a lot of this come to fruition.
Councillor Ioannidis.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Urbanovic. Economic development, quite frankly, is the most frustrating aspect in this role as council. I would recall in the last 15 years, we've had such tremendous successes, and quite frankly, I feel like we let go on the gas pedal a little bit here. And I don't think it's the fault of any individual or any staff member or anything like that, but I think the circumstances of where we are today is based on many outside factors that have put us in this position. But I don't think we're doing enough. And I'd like to talk, I like hearing the catalytic investments. I think I agree. We need to be bold, and we need to do something to jumpstart where we are, because quite frankly, I'm very, very frustrated where this is. And that's where I was leading our questions to Sheldon, is I feel this council should be taking on more of an active role in delegating and looking at how we need to move our city forward with regards to economic development. Anyways, I am supportive of the work that's been here. I think the work that is here is a solid strategy. But this ain't enough. We need full-blown pedal to the metal. Yeah, like we had Dragon's Dens coming here. We had everything. It's now like poof, and it's all gone. And that's the frustrating part. And again, it's not any individual. It's not anything. It's just the circumstances that we went through a pandemic, we were going through tariffs, we're going through all kinds of things, and we're not the only ones experiencing this. But I think the next term of council, we need a solid strategy, we need some catalytic investments, and quite frankly, downtown, we need to refocus, because I just don't see the improvements that I want to see. But anyways, thanks.
Thank you. I'll start with the too late for part of the strategy, but I do want to make note of it in the future, and that is, again, looking at our granting opportunities, and I'm very supportive of the actual dollars that are being, like where the dollars are going as part of this report. But as Councillor Singh mentioned as well, looking at ways that we can possibly, if we're giving out grants, possibly taking equity stakes in some of these on a very small scale. Like obviously not a hard negotiation, lucrative scale, but mostly so that we're not taken advantage of, really, in terms of using Kitchener's resources and then moving down to the valley, because that's something I think we should be a little bit concerned about. And again, since we have investments in Unova, we've had investments in things like Atria in the past. I'm sure that there's a way that we could figure that out. But again, that's for a future discussion. I want to be clear on this as well. In terms of economic development, the way I see it, unlike the other things that we do, like recreation and our events, we really should try to be all things to all people. That's our job, right? We're supposed to address equity. When it comes to economic development, a big part of it is really marketing ourselves outside of our local area. And in that respect, I'm not afraid to put a whole bunch of eggs in one basket. I think that's how we get our most bang for our buck. And that's what I meant by the diversity. I don't mean that we ignore, the food sector and the arts and entertainment sector. Like, these are very important, but I'm saying when we're putting our focus on, we're trying to market ourselves to the rest of the world, it's very, very difficult when we're a small municipality like we are to be known for just even one thing, right? We're not Toronto, we're not New York. We can't be all things to all people when it comes to economic development. So that's why, that's really what I've always meant by let's focus on what we are known for, and that is technology. And that's not a narrow scope, right? Technology it's not even just AI and quantum. It is software, it is chips, it's medical devices, automotive devices, entertainment, video games, that sort of thing that we're known for, that we do right here locally. So that's really what I'm most concerned of when I look at this stuff, is that a lot of the things that are in here are very, very important. I just want to make sure that when we try to go outside of the city of Kitchener, that we're really focusing on one thing. Because once we're known for that one thing, it's like Mardi Gras in New Orleans, right? Like, everyone comes for that one thing, and while they're there, that boosts the restaurant industry, that boosts the hotel industry, that boosts the other recreation industries that are around here, right? So that's really my focus, and I'm hopeful and confident that that's the way that we're going to go. Thank you for this. I'll be supporting it.
Councillor Chapman.
Yeah, I just want to say thank you for this. I think it's a great, I like the two areas of that you're proposing for Kitchener 2.1, the diversifying our economy. I've spoken to my concerns already, so I won't repeat them. I think business attraction, I know there's a lot of work being done behind the scenes to do that, together with your team and also the BIA, so I'm sure that will continue, and I look forward to seeing, you know, what comes out of that. And that will in turn help to address some of the office vacancies. I also think, you know, certainly exploring AI and quantum, I think are good directions that it could take time to bring forward and to make effective, but I think that's also good direction. And of course, the continued investment in health innovation, I think that's been on the table for a while. I also like the part about the downtown vision, and I think that's been spoken to by others as well. I think you know, the city is doing a good job in growing that file, right? And so I commend you for that. So thank you.
Councillor Schneider.
Thank you, Mayor Vervanovic. Again, another great body of work. There were so many things outside of our control. I think we had a great plan, and then stuff happened, and now it's time to pivot and take another shot at it and consider the current situations that are out there. So it is a time to be brave, as we always have been, and really, I think we have people on staff and people on community and people in the BIA and our friends at Communitech that I think together we can do some really great things, and I'm excited for it. So thank you.
Okay, there don't appear to be any others in the queue, so I'll make a number of comments. I too want to thank staff for the work that's been done here, and it builds on significant successes in our community over many years and significant investments that have been made in the downtown and more broadly in general in terms of economic development. And I'll go back to the very building that we're in. In 1989, 1990, this building was the investment and the catalytic investment of the council of the day was $65 million back then, representing in current dollars about $125 million. Later on, the Market Block was developed. In 2004, there was the original Economic Development Investment Fund of $110 million, which represents $174 million in current dollars. And then in coming out of COVID, we have the current Economic Development Fund of another $110 million. So, you know, by some quick math, that's over $400 million in investment over the last 30 plus years in terms of the downtown and on economic development as a priority. And quite frankly, I think the successes speak for themselves. I think the other piece that speaks to the successes that we have, and I think it's important for council to remember while we focus on Kitchener, and I am the first one to speak to that, we can't lose sight of the fact that we are actually part of a broader economy that works together with our partners in the other municipalities throughout Waterloo Region and along the Toronto-Waterloo Region Innovation Corridor. And we can't ever start thinking of ourselves as being exclusive on that front. Our strength actually comes in the work that we do together from an economic development point of view. And it's that diversity across the economy, in fact, that has helped us be successful, where we have, roughly, 17 to 20% that's focused on tech and innovation, 17 to 20% that's been focused on financial services sector, 17 to 20% that's been focused on manufacturing. And it's that diversity of the economy that's allowed us to work through the ups and downs of different sectors at different points in time. And then obviously the remainder that's across a variety of sectors. And I think that's important because it also allows us to capitalize on the strengths of different parts of our region. So while Kitchener isn't a host municipality for the airport, for example, and Woolwich is the host municipality and obviously gets some of the most direct economic benefits. We know there's companies like Haru DefTech, which originally was in Kitchener, had to grow to build the landing gear for the Boeing 787 Dreamliner, needed to expand, was either going to expand in Kitchener, somewhere in the region, or out of this province. And in the end, we handheld them because there wasn't space available in Kitchener at the time, and they built a facility in Cambridge. In the meantime, found new contracts and kept both their new facility in Cambridge open and the facility in Kitchener. We think about the priorities that are happening with the federal government right now in defense, as an example, to meet our NATO commitments and protecting our sovereignty and recognizing some of the geopolitical realities in the world. There's a reason why a company like Colt in Kitchener got almost $300 million in contracts from the federal government in the defense space, a company that's located in Ward 3 in Kitchener. There are others that are making components for things like the LAV personnel carrier that's manufactured in London, but things like the steering column are made here in Kitchener, and the list goes on of that. And so I think it's important that we think of these things in that broad picture. I am pleased with the document that's in front of us and the engagement that happened both with our advisory committees and different sectors of the economy in helping shape the update that's before us, that builds on some of the successes and partnerships we've had with Communitech, UW Velocity, Mix, while also recognizing the opportunities in spaces like AI and quantum, because these are areas that are both not only unique in some respects to this area, but are also strengths of our area and areas where we know there's going to be significant economic growth and job opportunities in the future. I will also say, I think it's important as we think about areas such as creative industry, social entrepreneurship, retail, the food sector, and so on. Not everyone in our community is going to be destined for a career in tech and innovation. When we think about immigration that's coming to our community, much of that immigration is coming from people who are entrepreneurial in and of themselves because they've chosen to immigrate to a new country. They're risk takers, but they also come from countries and cultures where small businesses are very much a big part of the economy. And so, looking for ways that we support that and create those opportunities is absolutely key, and that's where things like our small business center, the SDG Idea Factory, and others play a key role in that. So I think those are things that we want to build on past successes, recognize the changes that have happened, and also focus on the heart of the city. I will tell you, just coming out as my last point. Coming out of the Big City Mayor's Caucus at FCM, downtowns and the ongoing investment and revitalization of downtowns is something that is going to be a national priority for BCMC in the foreseeable future. But I will also say that many people recognize that despite the fact that we do have some challenges, we also have a lot of strengths in comparison to other municipalities our size and larger. And I don't think we want to lose sight of that, and lose sight of the importance of finding the right balance between job opportunities and employment, residential, and then it's the important role that arts and culture plays in the downtown, not just for downtown residents, but everyone broadly. So with that, it has been moved and seconded. All those in favor? Any opposed? That's carried. Moving on. We'll now move on to, we'll move to item 4.2. Oh, with the noted conflict, sorry, thank you. We'll now move on to 4.2, Development Charge Reduction Program. There have been 2 written submissions from Mattamy Homes and Cachet Homes, and I will turn it over to Katie, to Fisher. Welcome, Ms. Fisher.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor and members of Council. I'm very pleased to join you today to present the Development Charges Reduction Program, or DCRP for our short acronym for today. This program was announced by the province on June 1st and is part of the Canada-Ontario Partnership to Build, which is an $8.8 billion provincial and federal joint funding program towards housing enabling infrastructure over 10 years. This is a very significant investment opportunity in housing development in Ontario. In recent years, the city has made significant progress towards implementing our growth supporting infrastructure as laid out in our 2022 Development Charges Background Study, at the same time maintaining low DC rates compared to our counterpart municipalities, as demonstrated on this slide. This competitive landscape has enabled lands to be ready for housing on both an infill and suburban greenfield basis, and has helped the city meet its housing targets for 3 years in a row now. These past investments, prioritizing development infrastructure, have contributed in part to some of the shortfalls that we've been talking about in recent months on our DC funding availability. But given the competitive DC rates already in place at the City of Kitchener, it's not believed that the DCs themselves are a barrier to housing development, as seen by us meeting those housing targets 3 years running. However, the DCRP does provide an additional layer of incentives in further supporting housing enabling infrastructure and housing development locally. Participating in the DCRP has the potential to unlock funding for the City of Kitchener to proceed with the next iteration of growth investments in infrastructure that otherwise may be delayed due to some DC cash constraints. The DCRP was launched, as I mentioned, on June 1st, and it has an application deadline of June 19th, so a pretty quick window there. It was designed to advance municipal housing enabling capital investments that will unlock additional housing development. In exchange for a 30 to 50% or more reduction to residential DC rates over a 3-year period, a municipality could see funding of up to 90% of eligible costs on up to 5 growth supporting capital projects that we submit. The program guidelines state that applications will be evaluated and prioritized based on set criteria. These include the level of DC reduction committed to, the ability to move quickly to construction with shovel-ready projects, with construction to start no later than 2030 and be completed by 2035, the amount of housing unlocked, not only in the city as a whole, but within each specific project area. And while the program allows for applications on community building infrastructure, such as recreation and fire, it's very much emphasized in the program guidelines that housing enabling infrastructure is prioritized, that being roads, water, sewer, storm. So as I mentioned a few times, the DCRP is very much focused on housing enabling incentives here. And so we took that one step further with the proposal in front of you today that staff have developed, aligning housing enabling end-to-end throughout the program. With the grants being focused on housing enabling services, we propose all housing enabling infrastructure DC rates, so those rates in those same areas that grant funding could be seen, would be 100% eliminated down to 0 under the program. The city's main DC rate, with all the relevant lower tier municipal services that we're responsible for providing, is a little over $31,000 currently for a single semi-detached unit. With the proposed incentive program, should the city partake and the program be approved as we've submitted, the DC rate would be reduced by 38% to a little over $19,000. We currently have an existing incentive for the central area that already provides a 33% incentive lower than the suburban or main DC rate, and this would be further reduced by an additional 7%. So with these rates proposed, it would mean a 100% elimination of all hard infrastructure DCs for residential new housing development over the 3-year window, and that's a significant incentive to support housing development within our community. The commitment to reduce DCs would be held for 3 years over the program life, from March 2026, so a bit of retroactivity there under the program guidelines, to March 2029. The amount of impact that has on our lost DC revenues depends on how much growth is realized over that time period. Using growth forecasts from our last DC background study, staff forecasts that DC revenues impact would be a lost revenue impact of $37 million. Of course, the actual amount of that impact varies depending on how much growth is actually realized. Under a more constrained growth scenario, as we've seen in just the recent few months, that would mean lower lost revenue impact. On the other hand, if the program does work to incentivize housing as it is designed to do, alongside the HST break on new homes, then the lost DC revenue impact could be higher. Using our best estimates, however, we're forecasting that impact to be about $37 million. At the same time, the proposal in front of you would have us apply for grant funding of $37 million as well. This means that the program could potentially work on a net break-even basis, where the lost DC revenues is offset by the provincial funding, by the grant funding from the province and feds. And that would mean there would be no increase to tax or utility rates through our participation in the program. With the investments already made to date, there remains only a limited number of projects that are housing enabling and shovel-ready from our 2022 DC background study. We propose submitting the 5 projects as itemized in the report and shown on this slide, with the city-funded portion covering the ineligible costs as well as a mandatory minimum 10% of eligible costs. The funding that the municipal portion would contribute is 23%, well above the 10% minimum of the threshold. Sorry, a lot of numbers that I'm throwing out there at you today. The grant submission would seek $37 million in grant funding, as I noted, and that middle column on this slide. The projects are currently fully funded from development charges, as they are 100% related to growth, and therefore it's proposed that the non-grant portion will continue to be funded from DCs. There does remain some uncertainty in the program parameters as to rules around that source of funding, whether DCs would be eligible for all of that or a portion of it, or none. Should that 10% contribution be required to be sourced from non-DC components, the city would adjust to using other capital reserve fund balances. As noted, the city's proposed approach would have alignment end-to-end on incentives. The grants are focused on housing enabling services, and so our program would see 100% elimination of the housing enabling hard infrastructure DCs. This would be done using agreements under Section 27 of the Development Charges Act. And through these agreements, we would contain some accountability for developers to actually proceed through to construction and to occupancy of those housing, so that we are ensuring that we are developing and building those housing on a timely basis within our community. Doing a different approach, such as 30% across the board of every DC service area, would not have that end-to-end alignment on housing enabling. Additionally, if we applied the discount to other services, like the soft services as they're commonly referred to, such as indoor and outdoor recreation, fire, library services, we would have lost DC impacts in those areas that we would have to make up for through taxpayers' funded dollars, as we would not be getting grant funding to offset those impacts. That equates to about $25 million of taxpayer dollars that would be needed to supplement the program over 3 years. which is a tax rate increase of 3 to 5% depending on how many years we would fund that impact over. And that's hence why we recommend focusing on the housing enabling aspect to continue to have alignment end to end. Overall, the DCRP acts as a multi-layered incentive program to advance housing enabling infrastructure at the municipal level and to incentivize developers through lower DCs in order to unlock more housing. The program provides flexibility for municipalities to make proposals on their own targeted approach as long as it works within the program guidelines. With that in mind, we have prepared a very thoughtful program for the City of Kitchener with alignment from the capital projects for which we would seek grants, through to incentives provided to developers, through to holding developers accountable for following through on construction of those housing units. While the program proposal we developed is designed on a net break-even basis, there does remain significant risk. The lost revenues impact is just a forecast at this time and could shift, resulting in lower or higher lost revenues impact than what's estimated. Projects could also come in under or over budget, and there could be face significant delays beyond what is allowed in the program, and that could lower the amount of grant funding actually realized in the end. We also have limited DC funding available to advance the city's portion on the projects at this time, but we would be seeking to prioritize them in light of the significant grant funding available. Should the actual amount of grant funding be approved in a different amount than what is submitted, or the terms of the agreement or alter any of the analysis or recommendations, staff would report back to council on August 10th, as outlined in the report. In conclusion, staff have worked to develop a very thoughtful program within the DCRP parameters. We believe that we have put together forms a strong application that aligns well with the program evaluation criteria and strongly supports housing development. The city would be providing a 100% elimination of hard services, DCs, in those hard infrastructure areas, with alignment end-to-end on the focus of housing enabling infrastructure. This is a reduction to the city's main residential DC rate of 38% for 3 years. The central rate, as I noted, already has an incentive and would be further reduced by 7%. The discount will be provided through Section 27 agreements under the DC Act, with a requirement to ensure housing is constructed on a timely basis. Overall, the city's application and amount of grant funding, if it was approved as it is submitted, that would work on a net break-even basis with no increase to tax or utility rates. The application deadline is this Friday, June 19th, and it's anticipated that decisions would be made and communicated in July or August. And as noted, staff would report back if there was any significant alterations to the application. I want to thank you for your consideration of the proposal, and I can now take questions that you may have.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Singh?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's a really unfortunate circumstance where we're finding ourselves because we need to participate to ensure that we have access to funding, but we have hardly any time for us to look at adjust the levers to figure the right strategy for us. So speaking to that, my concern lies, and I'm just trying to understand why. Where we differentiated from many other municipalities is we incentivize development within our urban boundary, or at least the urban already built areas as opposed to suburban growth. Right now, there's no incentivization left anymore. We're making it the same, build downtown, what we talked about for an hour and a half before, how do we animate our downtown, where you build all the way to the very end of Southwest Kitchener. So why not look at a deeper discount in an urban where we're still ensuring the exact strategy the province and the feds want of us while maintaining a smaller discount for the suburban. So we can continue to see more growth in our built area where we already have the infrastructure as opposed to getting less and building more out there.
Through the chair, so the program guidelines focus on applying incentives and holding rates consistent across each area. Currently, we do have that 33% incentive in the central area, as you know, Councillor Singh. And that's through a reduction on the hard infrastructure. Through this proposed program, we would be eliminating the hard infrastructure DCs across all areas in order to achieve that. So if you wanted to go further on the central rate, that would be touching into the soft services DCs, as they would be already eliminated under that 7%. And that would have then a tax-funded portion that would be required.
So are you saying what's being proposed right now is the bare minimum that we have to achieve?
No, our proposal is to reduce 38% through the focus of hard infrastructure DCs. So if I'm gathering correctly, you're suggesting that we would only reduce 30% on the suburban area?
I was saying continue on having, but you've already answered saying that I think the province wants to be the same across the board. They don't want to see a differentiation between urban and suburban. What I wanted to see in my mind was a continued on incentivization for us to see development progress in our built neighborhoods as opposed to in the suburban sprawl.
Right, and so through the chair, if we were to further incentivize the central area, that would be going into the soft service area DCs, and we would have to fund those differences from.
So the 7% reduction right now in the urban areas, that is the hard infrastructure, the 7%, that's what we're reducing?
Correct.
Okay, and the 30%, 33%, or whatever the number was, right? That's the hard on that side. That's a maximum that we can do.
Without
impacting the tax base.
Yes, the tax rate.
Okay, last question. Impact's 37 million. We're happy to get 37 million. Where's the win here?
Unlocking additional housing. The alignment that we've sought to build into this proposal in front of you is we are able to move forward on these projects that are itemized here that otherwise might have faced some delays because, as you're aware, we do have some DC cash flow constraints. So we can leverage the program to realize some grant funding to move those forward so that housing can advance for our community.
And I'm asking rudimentary questions because the public needs to understand this. It's not a matter of us or some of us that might have a better, deeper understanding. It's an average person needs to see, wait a minute, why are the developers getting a $37 million gift? What we're saying, so what I'm hearing from you is this 37 million, we would be eligible upfront, as opposed to if we wanted to see that development happening to the progress of time, that those DCs would have come, over a prolonged period, as opposed to the immediate DC funding that's available as an offset from the feds in the province that can help us build that hard infrastructure. Am I right?
So if I've gathered correctly, the program is designed through the chair under two separate ways, and the two aren't tied. So we've presented nicely that the offset 37 million offsets the other side of the coin. We would be committing to reducing the DCs over the next 3 years. So any building permits issued March 2026 to March 2029 for residential building permits. The grant funding would be realized based on the project milestones as we complete and deliver those project works. That will unlock then housing. So if we're constructing, Strasbourg Road, that will unlock housing potentially beyond those 3 years. So it's a long-term investment opportunity that the province has aimed to arrive at.
I think there's an answer within my question and your reply, but it's still not easily understandable by the average person. I'm going to allow others to ask, but I may key back in to get to that point so that we can transfer that and translate that better to our community.
Well, to be clear, I think there is a clear answer. The amount that's being contemplated, yes, is net neutral in terms of the scenario that staff have developed, and it's taken a lot of work on staff's part to try to get it to that point. I'm not arguing for the direction of the provincial government on this, but I would say the intent is that any reduction in DCs and or in the HST is a interest that would benefit anybody who is purchasing a new home or building a new home, whether that's a individual who is putting a second unit at their existing residence or a third unit at their existing residence, or whether it's someone, you know, looking at building a multi unit, and those advantages would then be passed on to the purchaser, is the anticipation of both the provincial and the federal government. Councillor Schneider.
Thank you, Mayor Vrivanovic. Thanks for bringing this forward. This will be helpful in bringing the cost of building a home down. And I do really appreciate our developers because they take all the risk and they do need to make a profit. But do we have assurances that these reductions will get passed on to the first-time buyers?
Thank you. Through the mayor, it's difficult to build in any parameters even into our agreement that would be the case, as we're in, as you know, the housing market is what largely drives the sale price of new homes. So it does reduce the cost of constructing those new homes, but how it flows then into the price of that home, that is the developer's area.
Yeah. Okay. So, okay, I'll make comments later, but okay, thank you.
Councillor Davey.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. I've already asked a lot of questions offline, Mr. Mayor. The only one I wanted to clarify on, though, is this is a competitive process, right? And I think some of the terms still aren't completely ironed out. So I just want to make sure what we're approving here. So no matter what, like if we approve this as is it going to come back? It's going to come back to us for like final approval, regardless of any changes the province makes? Or if it goes exactly like this, will it not come back to us at all?
Yes, through the mayor, the way the motion is written, if our application is accepted exactly as submitted, then the delegated authority would be provided to the CFO to sign and move forward, and we would let council know, but we would not require to come back for a secondary motion. And that's largely because this is a commitment that we're asked to make by submitting the application. The province has used language such as it is an agreement in principle, but municipalities then clarified if we got grant funding at lower amounts than what's being applied for, that would make it a challenging scenario then to continue to proceed, and we would want to reevaluate that. So they have it clarified that yes, it's an application, it's an agreement in principle that you are submitting, but if the parameters changed in their approval of what they send back as their approval, then you would be able to reconsider at that time. So hence, all to say, if everything was approved as is, we would inform council, but we would not seek reapproval of that application.
Okay, that's helpful. I'll have a comment as well, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Councillor Chapman.
Yeah, thank you. So I asked a few questions earlier, but one of them that I'm still not clear on. Does this apply just to the 5 development projects that are listed in the report, or any development project that comes to us from now till whenever?
Okay, so sorry, thank you. Through the mayor. So you're asking if the development charge reduction is only
Yes.
in those service areas
Yes.
of where those projects support. It would be citywide, all residential development charges over those 3 years.
Would be reduced. So
Yes.
not just, so that means what we're proposing here is only going to recover the loss of development charges for those 5 sites, but there will be other development charges that we will also lose. Is that correct?
No, just to be clear, Councillor Chapman, no, it's a good question. The reduction would happen across the city. The dollars that we would get from the provincial and federal governments would go to those 5 specific projects because they are in our DC background study and are eligible to be funded through this program.
Okay, so
Does that help?
Right, so if we don't approve this, we won't lose those development charges across the board.
So if we opted to not apply
Right.
and live in the current scenario, the development charge rates would continue to
Where they are.
come in. We would collect development charges in roads, sanitary, water, so forth. That would then, you know, in theory, we're saving up those and using debt financing to then pay for the project works that are involved on those 5 projects.
Right.
So now, counter to that, how the program would work is we'll use grant funding instead for large part. There is a municipal portion, but grant funding would pay a large portion of those projects. So then we wouldn't need to raise all the development charge revenues from across the city to help fund those.
Right. Okay, I think I've got it. My other question has to do with why are we applying this retroactively to March 1st?
That was through the mayor. That's part of the program guidelines by the province. That was their announcement date of the Canada-Ontario Partnership to Build. And when they created that HST incentive as well, they want the alignment with that HST incentive.
Okay. I think that's all for now. Thanks.
Thanks, Councillor Chapman. Councillor Deneau.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Cold over there, hey, Io. Thank you, Ms. Fisher. So this is also in addition to the DC deferrals under Bill 17, right? So they get the deferrals and then this partnered with it. Okay. And by signing onto this agreement, does the city take all the risk?
Through the mayor, there are risks for the city. I don't know that I would say we take all the risk. As you know, developers, I think somebody already mentioned developers take risk in housing development. But yeah, there is risk associated with that estimation of the 37 million. If the lost revenue impact would be higher because our growth exceeds our forecasting at this time, we would see more lost revenues than what we gain in grants. There's potential for that scenario. As I noted, the construction of these projects must be completed by 2035, must begin by 2030. There are risks on these projects that may be outside of the city's control that we will actively work to manage as best we can. But these are large, complex projects as well. And if that was to occur, we could have the lost revenue impact and not realize the full amount of grants in the 37 million that we anticipate. So there are different risks going into the program, such as those.
Okay. And so you mentioned if we have an increase in growth, it's the higher loss of revenue. There isn't any little fine print that says that we can, go back and ask for more that you're aware of.
Not that I'm aware of. It's a single intake program.
Okay. And you may not know this, but when it says there's a Buy Canada, Buy Ontario criteria. Do you have any idea what that is referring to?
Through the mayor, I'm just looking over at Jonathan.
Sorry, go ahead, Jonathan.
So through the mayor, the Buy Ontario legislation was actually legislation that just came into effect. So it actually requires the use of in construction, a local factor in terms of evaluation of proposals. So it will be something that will affect all municipalities and all projects going forward. So it's really just reflected in the program because it is something that the government has recently passed and expects as part of the grant funding.
Okay. Would we be monitoring that, or is that the province that would monitor that?
So through the mayor, we're actually required to comply as a municipality to the Buy Ontario regulations that were in effect, and they came in effect as of, I believe, middle of May.
Okay.
For the first for fleet vehicles, and construction, I believe it's middle of June. So we are working through our process to make sure that we are compliant. So we don't have any concerns that we wouldn't comply with those factors related to participating in this program.
Okay, so maybe I'm a little bit confused. So when I'm talking about like the construction of the sewers and the homes, is that applied to that as well? So we're getting Ontario-made or locally sourced materials for our infrastructure development, but also the development of the homes as well?
So through the mayor, the regulations apply specifically to municipalities. So it's in terms of our procurement of those services. So as we're constructing those 5 projects, ensuring that we're factoring weighting in terms of local companies and supply chain in terms of what that looks like is part of the regulation.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Chapman.
Yeah, I just wonder if staff has considered looking at just one of the 5 projects to see how it plays out rather than throwing 5 out there all at once?
Through the mayor, the challenge with submitting just one project would be that the numbers aren't large enough in terms of the grant funding that we would be seeking to offset even a 30% reduction. We'd still be looking at, over $30 million of lost revenue impact to maintain a 30% minimum reduction over 3 years. And we are allowed to submit up to 5 projects. So we did look at what projects do we have on the shovel-ready basis that are in our DC background study. That was a requirement as well. And these 5 were the ones that kind of made sense under the program parameters.
And is there any risk of other development projects going to the OLT arguing that, well, we didn't get it, or are we setting ourselves up for bigger problems?
Through the mayor, we did not prioritize projects one over the other. When we developed this list of 5 projects, they were the list of 5 projects. There's not a 6th project that didn't quite make the cut. There are additional projects that are in our DC background study, but the timing doesn't align well. They're still a little bit further out to have that construction start by 2030 and construction complete by 2035.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Singh.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I think your explanation helped to pretty much outline exactly what I was trying to say is how do we make our residents understand, how this will unlock housing being built faster. So coming back to the same thing with those 5 projects, the fact that we can put forward more shovel-ready projects that can help build that infrastructure out. Absent this type of program, would have been challenging for us to proceed those 5 projects and accelerate a timeline to see those housing starts happening faster than over a long period of time.
Yes, through the mayor, as I had reported to council on March 30th, also the date that the program was announced, ironically. Because we have the cash flow constraints, we have been undertaking work to review our DC modeling, and part of that would be looking at the timing of capital projects and prioritization. And so that work was going to come back to council as part of the 2027 capital budget, still will, but through those cash flow constraints, this funding would unlock the opportunity to move those forward or at the timelines that they do currently exist, instead of us looking to defer them due to our cash flow constraints.
So I think that's the narrative of the story, which we can really articulate effectively to show exactly, this is a win for the entire community to unlock housing and ensure affordability across the board, right? So that's good. I'm glad that we were able to kind of retranslate that. Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So those are all the questions we have. Thanks, Katie. Do I have a mover? Councillor Davey, thank you. And do you want to speak to it? Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. This is one where I really have to credit staff's work.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, second.
Are you forgetting? I need a seconder as well. Councillor O'Dooney, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. When the first sort of light details of this program came out, I was fairly convinced that I would not be able to support it. It just effectively put too much of a strain, frankly, on our DC projections, which are already seeing some repercussions from moves that the province made, and or putting this on the tax base, which we have to, at some point, we're going to have a broader conversation, I think, about the appropriateness of DCs. But what I love about this is that all of the DCs here are for the hard subsurface infrastructure, which benefits no one else except for the new homes that we're building. I think that's really, really important. Like, to use an analogy, while, you know, housing and lowering the cost of housing is important, if someone builds a new house in your subdivision, you know, everyone else that lives in the subdivision shouldn't pay for your plumbing, right? So the people that buy the house should pay for the plumbing. And that's really what I think is the middle ground here in terms of what we're doing with our DCs. But anyway, suffice it to say that this is not what we're looking at in terms of hitting either our DCs in the long term or our tax rate payers. And again, I have to give credit to staff on this because if it was going to hit either of those two things, I wasn't prepared to support it. So they found a way to do it in a revenue neutral way, you know, assuming that you know, everything works out. But they use their financial skills and their modeling skills to make sure that, and their best estimate is this is going to be revenue neutral. At the same time, we are hopefully going to be lowering the cost of housing for some folks, because it's still extremely challenging out there for residents to purchase homes. So I think all around this is a win-win. We still have some DC work to do in the future, but this should have hopefully very little impact on the city's finances, and I will support it.
Thank you. Councillor Stretch? Nope. Okay, if you want to use your phone, and in the meantime, I'll go to Councillor Chapman. Thank you. Go ahead, Councillor Chapman.
Yeah, so I continue to have concerns. I don't like the word could in the report, that it could be approved for funding. I think this is quite a risky initiative that we're signing on to here. The report says clearly the city's DC rates are not believed to be a barrier to housing developments locally. So there are multiple factors, but DC charges in particularly are not the be-it-all and end-it-all reason of the housing stagnation that we have right now. And it also says that there will be significant administrative costs that will not be recovered through the program. So to me, there are too many unknowns and too many risks in moving forward with this, because we could end up with a huge debt that we're not accounting for here. So I'm not going to support this at this time.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Stretch? Actually, just before that, I just will clarify one thing, and certainly, you know, you're free to vote however you choose to. Where it says could, the agreement that's what council is approving tonight, if they choose to, is to move forward with this, and it's conditional on all 37 million or all 5 projects being approved. And if that is the case, then it would proceed. If that doesn't happen, then it would come back to council for further consideration based on any recommendation. So I just want to make sure that there's clarity on that for you. So yeah, we'll leave it at that. Councillor Stretch.
Okay, can you hear me now?
We can.
Great. Okay. So I'm glad to support this. I can see a direct way that this will support more housing being built, and in a balanced way, not purely focused in the downtown core, but also in the suburban areas. So yeah, I'm thankful for staff for working really hard to figure this out, and really happy to see where this goes. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Ioannidis.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Verbanovic. I guess the way I look at this is if we don't participate, then it's going to be 100% on the tax base. So to me, we don't have a choice other than to accept this.
Okay, well, and just to be clear, I want to make sure that we're all being clear in terms of what we're saying. It wouldn't be 100% on the tax base. It would be 100% on development charges. And so projects might be delayed until we collect enough development charges, but it wouldn't be on the tax base. Councillor Schneider.
Thank you, Mayor Vanovich, and thank you, staff, for this. We do need more homes, and partnering with the provincial government, we just received over $8 million from the Building Faster Fund because we've worked collaboratively with them. It's, we always say, the housing challenges are not something just one order of government can fix on their own or address on their own. So this is another collaboration where everyone's doing a little bit to hopefully do a lot for the housing situation that we're in. So proud to support this.
Thanks, Councillor Schneider. Those are all the comments. I'll just add my own. I want to begin by, again, thanking staff, Mr. Lautenbach and Ms. Fisher, along with others, literally burnt the midnight oil in order to do all of the various calculations, work with the province, and I need to give you know, the team at MMAH kudos on that, because they've been very responsive in terms of working with our staff, recognizing that every municipality has some nuances. Is this a perfect solution? Absolutely not. But is it a step in terms of, you know, potentially together with things like the HST reduction and so on, reducing costs, making it more accessible and affordable for people to purchase homes? Yes, it is. And with the work that was done to create a situation where we have a balanced situation, essentially, where the 37 million nets out against the 37 million, I think it's prudent for us, for the exact reasons that Councillor Schneider just talked about, as part of our, you know, ongoing collaboration with other orders of government, to try to have a positive impact in terms of housing affordability. And at the end of the day, it really boils down to that very point, that no one of us, private sector, local government, regional government, provincial government, federal government, nobody has the, you know, has the perfect solution to solve this, or the ability to solve this on their own. But all these individual little pieces can have a positive impact. And you know, we're already starting to see, because of some of the successes, for example, that we've had in our own community, around, you know, seeing new construction moving forward, we're starting to see rents come down a little bit. And obviously, if you're the property owner, that may not be a great thing, but in terms of affordability for residents, that is a positive thing. And you know, you're starting to see some adjustments in the real estate market, and so on. There's a lot of things at play, and you know, what I think what we're trying to do here is simply you know, work with our colleagues to try to find pathways to see additional successes. So with that, it's been moved and seconded. A recorded vote? Sure. And that is carried. Okay, thank you. We'll now move on to item 3, Building Faster Fund. Mr. Lautenbach.
So to the mayor, there's no presentation for this item, but it is a recommendation in terms of what our investment plan would be for the third year of funding that we did receive, which is in the 8 million range. And it is required to be submitted by Friday of this week, and that's why it's in front of you today.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Davey.
Thank you. No questions, but I would move it now. Comment at the appropriate time, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, I'll let you comment, right? I presume nobody has questions? Okay, Councillor Ioannidis.
I guess thanks, Mayor Vanovich. I guess my question is with regards to the funding towards streets and all that stuff, the accelerated, which I'm loving this, it's fabulous. I just understanding, is that part of that is allowable part of the program?
Mr. Lautenbach.
So through the mayor, in the first category, in terms of the use of the Building Faster Fund, it does indicate that rehabilitation and repair of existing infrastructure is part of that category, and it provides examples of roads, bridges, water, wastewater, and stormwater. There obviously is a focus on housing enabling. As you just noted in the previous report, all of our DC-related projects are essentially in that grant funding opportunity that we just talked about. And so we have shifted from not just the one project, which has some DC funding, which is the Hidden Valley full culvert replacement, but then looking at existing infrastructure. And so we thought that the roads was the next area to focus on.
Okay. I guess, can I make my comments?
Back to you for comments.
Thank you.
Okay, do you have a question or comment? No comment. Okay, Councillor Davey, you were first on with your comments.
Yeah, thank you so much. I was really, I gotta say, really happy to see this report. In our role, there's a lot of pressure to always look for, some new way to, to spend money at the shiny bauble, that sort of thing. And oftentimes, our core responsibilities, they're not as popular, but we have to do them, right? Like we don't do ribbon cutting for, road reconstruction. But the fact of the matter is, for reasons I'm still not completely clear on, I've had more concerns about potholes, for example, this year than I've ever had in my 16 years on council. So while this may not make headlines, this is what we do. This is very, very important work, and I could not be happier to see that we're going to be doubling the road resurfacing program with these funds. And instead of spending it on new infrastructure, we're spending it on the very important infrastructure that we already have. So kudos to staff, and I hope this is unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Singh.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want to challenge the media. This, Councillor Davey, should absolutely be in the headlines. The fact that the city of Kitchener is going to be enabled by the Build Faster Fund to, double the resurfacing of our roadways. I think that's, we've all felt the pain after this very harsh winter of the challenges of a infrastructure that over time ages and in a harsher environment can impact our underground infrastructure, as well as obviously just the general livability of our residents. And in the end, I think the attractiveness towards additional housing in our community, ensuring that we have a faster replacement program enables us to address all those things. Because since the beginning of this year, one of the biggest complaints that I've heard from residents has been related to road infrastructure. And this addresses all of that. I'm sure I'm not the only one. Others have probably heard it the same. And I think the compliments goes to the province of outlining a program that is nimble in a grant process that ties faster housing growth to improvements to those successful communities as well. And that's not related just direct to housing, but it's overall infrastructure and what's bigger than anything, which is a road network and the infrastructure under it. And congratulations, staff, to put this forward. And hearing from council where the priorities lie, and I think this report really addresses that, and where the complaints are being heard from our residents. And so the headline should be, our residents are being heard. So hopefully they'll catch on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ioannidis.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I'm super pleased with where these funds are being directed, and that's why I asked that question. I knew you knew the answer. I knew the answer, but I just wanted to make sure that we heard the community. We heard from the community with their concerns about our infrastructure, and I couldn't be more pleased. And again, building anything faster, if we have folks or investors or companies wanting to look into our community, if we have bad roads, but where we go to work and wherever the new development is the only place where it's good roads, it's not a good community. So this is a great investment, and I really appreciate where this is coming from. So thank you.
Councillor Schneider.
Thank you, Mayor Vandenbroek. This is great news. As Councillor Davies says, it gets down to the core of what we do, parks, pavement, and it's really important that we do this. And again, we've heard from residents, we pass that on to staff, and we're seeing staff bring this forward. we'll see something nice posted about the city, and in the comments, fix the roads. So this is a big news story. And again, I want to thank fellow councillors, want to thank staff because of the collaboration we've been doing with the provincial government in meeting the housing targets they've set for them. It's not easy, but collaboratively we've done it, and we received our third Building Faster Fund check this past week. So good work by everybody on this.
Councillor Michaud.
Thank you. I too want to thank staff for this. I would like to just add that this year, I think, the roads have been the worst that they've ever been. Number one calls I get is around potholes. And it would be nice if we could put this into context, how far these dollars go as far as fixing roads go. Like, is there any possible way we could just kind of give a guesstimate how far, how many kilometers? Okay, how many kilometers do we get for $6 million?
Ms. McGoldrick?
So through the chair, the doubling of the road resurfacing program takes us to approximately 9 kilometers worth of resurfacing.
Councillor Chapman?
Yeah, no, I too want to say that I agree with this, the way that this money is going to be spent, and it's great when you've got the money in hand and you can make these decisions. So thank you to staff for this report.
Councillor Johnson.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I just wanted to say too that I am thrilled to see this. It's certainly something that we've all talked with staff about and around the Horseshoe. So great collaboration, as Councillor Davey said. This is kind of back to basics. Maybe that'll be maybe Mr. Lautenbach, that can be the title of our budget this year. But anyhow, you probably already have one. But I'm just wondering if perhaps we can even have our residents send in, ideas about their favorite road to get fixed. I don't know, that might be way too much. Oh, it might be fun. Anyhow, thank you so much. This is really great.
It might be fun, but I think it's important to remember that staff take a very technical approach to this and look at ways. What are the roads that need it the most in terms of our asset management program? But I will say that first of all, I want to say how pleased I was that we were able to host for the third year in a row the announcement for the Building Faster Fund last week, and I just want to take a moment to actually reference what our successes have been. In 2023, we had 3,579 housing starts, representing 139% of our target. In 2024, we had 3,067 housing starts, representing 105.1% of our target. And in 2025, we had 3,005 housing starts, representing 85.8% of our target. But I think most importantly is all of that has led to the city receiving just shy of $32.3 million in Building Faster funding over the last 3 years. Money that we've been able to invest back into the community in terms of purchasing land for housing, investing in infrastructure that's necessary for new housing, and now investing in infrastructure that supports growth that's happening around the community and existing infrastructure that needs to be improved. So I want to congratulate staff on the doubling that is happening in these dollars to invest in something that we heard in our it was a priority for our residents in our recent Abacus survey. We saw in that survey that resident satisfaction in the city of Kitchener was in the 70% range, but when it came to infrastructure, as many of you have indicated this evening, the challenging winter and the potholes that were created by it were a priority for our residents, and I think this clearly demonstrates that Abacus has not only accurately reflected that, but that both council and staff are responding with the doubling of those dollars. So I am pleased that it's here, and I will now call it to the vote. All those in, I didn't have a seconder again? Do I have a seconder? Councillor Chapman, thank you. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Okay. I do have one item under mayoral business and updates. Council recall that the region has continued to deal with the water issue as recently as last week. We'll be dealing with it again this Wednesday, and then again in early July. And I do want to speak to it briefly, that one of the things that our council will be dealing with on the 29th is our water allocation policy, which is an important step to manage new water supply responsibly and transparently while continuing to support the building applications that come before us. This follows the Region of Waterloo's approval of its interim risk management framework at the meeting last week, and the regional water allocation policy, which set the structure for allocating capacity and allow development activity to gradually resume across the region. Building on that, Kitchener's draft policy creates a clear and transparent approach to prioritize projects with the greatest community benefit, especially housing, including affordable housing, along with the essential services and economic development. It reflects strong collaboration with the region, our municipal partners, and the development industry, and reinforces that Kitchener remains open for business, with applications continuing to be reviewed so projects are ready to move forward as water becomes available. While demand will exceed capacity through 2026, regional repairs and infrastructure upgrades are expected to add significant capacity by early 2027, which will help move projects already in the pipeline forward. In the meantime, this policy will provide a fair and consistent framework to guide decisions, giving greater clarity to industry and the community. And it will introduce our commitment to meeting housing needs responsibly while supporting investment in economic growth and being careful stewards of our water resources for existing population. So I do want to acknowledge all of the work that our staff team has been doing over the last 6 months since we originally learned about this issue, working collaboratively with our regional partners, working collaboratively with our area municipal partners, and working collaboratively with various sectors of the economy that have been impacted by this, from home construction to frontline workers that are skilled tradespeople, to those who are looking to invest and grow their business in the community and create jobs. So that is something that we will be dealing with on the 29th. I know staff have been communicating and consulting with the industry on this, and will continue to do so ahead of this coming to us on the 29th. So we'll leave that at that, and we will now move on to the bylaws. Do I have someone to move 3 readings of the bylaws? Moved by Councillor Ioannidis, seconded by Councillor Schneider. Any discussion? All those in favor? Hang on a sec. Try that again. All those in favor? Any opposed? That's carried. And motion to adjourn. Councillor Deneau, Councillor Michaud. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Thank you.